Design, comparisons, display, sound, software, gaming, benchmarks, and finally cameras. This is my unboxing and extremely detailed review of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. We have the prices at the top right hand corner, the price in China, as well as the global price using current exchange rates. Taking the phone out of the box, the first thing that we see is indeed the headphones. You don't really see this many times these days. And we have a 3.5mm jack at the end of it, meaning we have a 3.5mm port on the phone itself. We have a USB Type-C to Type-C cord over here that sports 3.1 wide transfer speeds, and we have an 18-watt PD block in the box over here, though it can do up to 21 watts and 11 watts of wireless charging for that 4000 milliamp hour battery. Taking the phone out of the wrapper over here, this is indeed the white variant of the phone. You also get it in black and in purple. I think the white really stands out. It looks absolutely stunning with this glossy back white pearly finish, I must add. It really takes my breath away, especially when I first opened up the box. It looks absolutely spectacular. It is the thinnest phone, if you take a look at the top right hand corner, to its competitors over here, a lot thinner than that of the S20 Ultra, and honestly not that much taller. We have a two-phase shutter button, and if we could move the volume rocker to the left hand side, if Sony did this, we could possibly have some touch triggers. Just food for thought over there. We have a power button integrated with the fingerprint sensor over here, a non-split volume rocker, a 3.5mm headphone jack at the top, which is awesome to see, and we have this wonderful dual SIM tray over here, which can accompany a micro SD card, something that you don't really see in many phones, but this is pretty much a camera with phone functionality. We have an aluminum frame around it, and we have Gorilla Glass 6 at the back and front. We have 3.1 transfer speeds, USB, that is 4000 milliamp hour battery, 21 watt charging and 11 watt wireless charging. Taking off that film on the front of the screen here, you can see we have dual front-facing stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos and dynamic vibration. We'll get to that a bit later. We have IP65-68 water and dust resistance, which is awesome. And looking at the design compared to the competitors, it is definitely a lot thinner than that of the OnePlus 8 Pro. It is a lot narrower as well, and the camera bump is a lot smaller, which is good to see. And of course, the OnePlus lacks a headphone jack, something that the Sony retains, or actually brings back, because it was missing on the initial Xperia 1. Compared to the Samsung, a lot thinner over here, pretty much the same height, and the camera module on the back of the Samsung is absolutely massive. Once again, no headphone jack here either. Compared to the iPhone is a lot thicker, a lot wider, but it is also a lot shorter. Let me know what you guys would actually prefer in the comments down below. Once again, no headphone jack on the iPhone over here. I have to give it to the iPhone for that wonderful matte white finish. I wish the Sony had that. And when you talk about the rocking effect of the phones on a flat surface, I think the Sony and the iPhone do the best job here, with the Samsung and OnePlus just rocking like crazy. The design is absolutely stunning, but what about the screen? Well, we have a 21:9 aspect ratio, 6.5-inch OLED display with 1 billion colors. It is 4K, or almost 4K, with 643 ppi, HDR BT 2020 with 540-ish nits, GSM Arena said. When it comes to brightness, a 60Hz refresh rate panel, but we do have blur reduction to give it a 90Hz feel, which we will get to in a second. Here is indeed the motion blur reduction, because most consumers these days look for a high refresh rate panel when it comes to smartphones. Sony's answer is, of course, motion blur reduction over here, off on the left, on the right hand side. We're going to slow things down a hell of a lot over here. As you can see, there's pretty much no ghosting whatsoever happening, except for the top on the right hand side there as opposed to the left. Really great job here, Sony. But how does it compete against high refresh rate panels? We have the Realme X50 Pro on the left with a 90Hz panel and 120Hz panel on the OnePlus 8 Pro all the way on the right. And when we compare them, it is not quite 90Hz. I must say it is a lot smoother than what you would see on a 60Hz display, but there is pretty much in the middle of ghosting between 90 and 120, so it's good to see Sony had an answer for this, though it wouldn't have been too hard to add in a 90Hz refresh. We do have different dynamic colors over here. We have the standard mode, and here is the creator mode color gamut. And if we compare standard on the left to creator, the creator shows a lot more detail within the colors themselves, but it is a lot dimmer. If you take a look at it compared to other phones over here, it's a lot brighter with the standard and a lot dimmer when you go to the creator mode, though the phone overall isn't quite as bright, but that 1 billion colors really does shine through. The OnePlus also has that. If you are worried the phone is too tall, well guys, the S20 Ultra is just as tall, and we do have a wonderful one-handed mode, which is really easy to get into. This does have the lowest brightness in nit compared to the other devices, and you can see it over here. It is pretty much on par with the Samsung when you look at it like this, but when you have automatic brightness on, the Samsung can get a lot brighter with 1300 nits. The brightest being the OnePlus 8 Pro, and I think the most accurate when it comes to whites is the iPhone, though although the Sony can actually change the white color balance, which is really great for photographers. Now, can you keep the phone at 4K all the time? Well, if we take screenshots when we're on our home screen as well as in a benchmark app, yes, it shows that it is 4K. But if you go into AnTuTu benchmark, it actually shows that it is sitting at 2K. When you go into the YouTube app, however, the S20 can cap out at 1440p 60, whereas the Sony can do 4K 60 FPS, which is really epic to see on a smartphone. Of course, we have that crazy 21:9 aspect ratio, so it cuts a lot of the video out when you do zoom in on YouTube. But we have this wonderful Dolby Atmos paired with the screen. Let's have a listen and a look.
It has a gunner seat?
Now, before we get to software, you're actually going to be having to go into your phone. So to do that, you can use the physical fingerprint sensor that doubles up as the power button on the right-hand side. The only other phone that I have on me with a physical sensor is the iQOO Neo 3, which costs about 300 USD. So a third of the price here, and it is a tad quicker than that of the Xperia. Very interesting to see. Hopefully this improves with a software update. When it comes to optical readers, it is definitely on par, but the ultrasonic one on the Samsung is a lot faster. Now, we also have Face ID on most phones, but for some strange reason, the Xperia 1 Mark II lacks this feature. It really sucks. I really hope that they implement this in a future software update. We have a pretty much stock Android 10 experience over here, pretty much as you would see in a Pixel, with Google on the left-hand side. And we have the Google quick search icon at the bottom if you want that little bar over there. We have Android 10, like I said, and everything is very stock, very clean, very minimal. We have this awesome side sense thing, something that you don't see in a stock Android phone, where you can get quick access to apps, and you can also jump into split screen, well, multi-screen over here. And I must say, at first, I didn't think it would be great, but with this long, lanky screen, it actually makes for a lot of fun. Great job, Sony. Now, we also have a dark mode over here, which is awesome. You expect this on an OLED panel, though colors, when it is in dark mode, is a bit bluish or grayish, though at least we have it in the app tray here as well. We do have a lot of battery care things to boot up with that dark mode over there to preserve battery life, which is always good to see in a phone, as well as adaptive battery. Then we can also check out our screen on time for all individual apps. We have a wonderful ambient display experience here, and you can set it to always on, unlike the OnePlus 8 Pro, which is fully ambient. And the always on clocks, there's not much variety, but they look pretty neat. And of course, we have a wonderful LED notification light at the top right of the phone, which is always good to see. Like I said, this phone is very stock, so we have the Google Assistant built in, but unfortunately, we have to use Google Photos in order to see our epic photos on the phone. And if you want to go ahead and download the actual Sony album that we've seen on previous Xperia devices, it does not work even when downloading from an external source, and the Play Store just says that it is not available for your device. And we do have full screen gestures over here that you would see in stock Android, such as a Pixel device. It works pretty great, though you cannot really go to your home page from the home screen, which really sucks. And the biggest problem with it, not to be nitpicky here, but if you have your full screen gestures on, it actually crops the game, so it doesn't utilize the full screen. There's a thicker border at the bottom and on both the right and left side. But if you go to the 3-button navigation gestures, then your phone utilizes the entire screen when gaming. This is extremely strange. You would expect it to be the other way around. I really hope that they fix this with a software update, because if you're a gamer and you like full screen gestures, this is not going to be the phone for you if this doesn't change. Talking about gaming, we have a wonderful Game Enhancer app, and you can change a whole bunch of things within the gaming settings once in your game. We're going to put it on performance preferred, and the most important thing is being HS power control. This is heat suppression power control, so you can plug in your USB Type-C cord over here, and you can keep the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II's battery at the same level. It does not charge it does not drop. It puts all the power into the game that it is currently running, which is absolutely epic. It says that you should turn it off when you want to charge, but I've noticed that when you close the game, it automatically turns off, so that's a good thing to see. Gaming on the Xperia 1 Mark II does a fantastic job. Of course, all games are going to be going at 60 FPS here, but it feels really smooth with that motion blur reduction. And as you guys can see, that HS power mode worked fantastically, and I was using an Xbox controller. Take that, Sony. Now, if you wanted to use a 3.5mm headphone jack while gaming, and the HS power with your USB Type-C plugged in. It makes for a bit of an uncomfortable experience, but the option is there if you'd like it. Next game here is PUBG Mobile. We're going to turn on performance over here. We're going to test out HS power control once more. As you guys can see, 67%. It went up a bit when it was charging after I closed COD Mobile. And going into the game itself, I really love the 21:9 aspect ratio when watching movies and playing games. It really makes a big difference. You can actually see a lot more on the screen. It doesn't crop anything. It looks absolutely fantastic. And thank goodness I found a pan. But wait, here's a machete. But it doesn't want me to drop my pan. This really sucks, guys. It made for no kills in my PUBG Mobile experience on the X1 Mark II. So going on to that HS power, as you can see, nothing changed there. And moving on to performance, it's not all about gaming. How does it stack up in a couple benchmarks? We're going to start with AnTuTu version 8.4 and then move on to Geekbench 5.2. We're going to compare it at the end with battery drain as well as battery degrees in Celsius and CPU degrees in Celsius. We're going to speed up the test just to get results, and I will bring you guys a more detailed comparison in the weeks to come, so stay tuned for that. When it comes to battery drain, we drained by 4%. The average drain on all phones that I've tested before is about 5%. When it comes to battery degrees in Celsius, we added 3.5 degrees in Celsius, and the same thing can be said with the CPU department, hotter with 4 degrees adding onto it. The Xperia 1 Mark II got a total score of 547,397 points, which puts it pretty much at 10th place across the 11 phones that I currently have on me. Moving on to Geekbench version 5.2, of course we have that octa-core Snapdragon 865 processing chip. It is run on 7nm plus technology, and we have integrated graphics over here. I didn't mention earlier, we have 8 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM. That is the max amount of RAM that you can get on the Xperia 1 Mark II. In the CPU department, it scored 893 points in single core and 3,276 points in multi-core. Talking about OpenCL, we got 3,052 points. Using Vulkan API, 2,851 points. When it comes to the selfie cam, we have an 8 megapixel 24mm selfie snapper with 1080p 30 FPS capped front video recording. The natural photo looks great, but going into bokeh, there's quite a bit of edge detection, and full bokeh, it looks absolutely shocking. It is completely capped at full HD when using the selfie cam as a video recorder, as well as 30 frames per second. Let me know what you guys think of the audio and video quality when using the selfie video recording on the Xperia 1 Mark II. At the back of the Mark II, we finally have Zeiss optics with 60 times per second autofocus and a 20 FPS shutter speed, which is amazing. We have a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor. The main sensor is also 12 megapixels. Telephoto 3 times optical is the max. 12 megapixels, of course. Here is the standard camera user interface. It looks pretty standard compared to other phones. These 12 megapixel ultra wide looks decent. The main looks pretty superb. Very natural looking colors here. 3 times optical using the telephoto. It looks great, and you can zoom in with that telephoto to 10 times digital. Doesn't look too bad. A lot better than other devices. With the TOF, the depth effect looks great, and using that 20 FPS shutter speed counter does an absolutely fantastic job. And we also have a 2-phase shutter button at the top right hand corner, which does a great job of first focusing and then taking your snap. We can also zoom in and out with the volume rockers, which is great. You do see this in some phones though. That is always nice to see in a fully fledged camera phone such as this. When it comes to the Camera Pro app, the Photo Pro app, that is, there are a lot of different options that you can use. You have exposure value control. You can change the ISO quality. There's a whole bunch of things that you can change, and I'm going to show you guys the full results. I'll get into a more detailed review on the actual camera app in the future. Ultra wide looks even better. Main looks way better than it did using the regular app over here. You do need to know what you're doing. I kind of just played around with it. I guess if you put this in the hands of a true photographer, it's going to look absolutely phenomenal. Background blur looks great. I think it looked better on the previous mode, but foreground blur looks absolutely fantastic. Once again, here, background blur with my hand and foreground blur with my hand as well. Foreground looks really epic. And we do have eye autofocus over here for humans, and they say supposedly animals. It works on me. It doesn't really work on my dog over here, which kind of sucks, but nevertheless, hopefully this will be fixed because they did state that this does work. Ultra wide is set to 4K 30 FPS max. You cannot get 60 here. We do have EIS. We are lacking optical image stabilization, and you can notice it. 4K 30 FPS is the max that we have with the main shooting over here. 60 FPS is not in the regular camera app, though we do have OIS and EIS over here. 1080p 60 FPS with the main camera over here. We do indeed have 1080p at 60 FPS, which is great with EIS and OIS. It looks pretty stunning. And going into a 4K 30 FPS with the telephoto camera, we have EIS and OIS. With stabilization off, you can see it is quite wonky. I'm going to show you guys how much it improves when you turn on stabilization. It looks absolutely phenomenal, and you can do it at 1080p 60 FPS, which is a major plus. When it comes to the Cinema Pro app, the aspect ratio is locked at 21:9 cinema mode, so I'm not sure if you guys like that. And the codec is H.265 only, so you may have to encode this for H.264 compatibility on most devices. Though the results are astonishing, I think even better than the regular UI. It just sucks that we cannot just use 16:9 aspect ratios. I really hope that they add this in the future. And we're rocking at 59.94 FPS at almost 4K. The Sony Xperia 1 Mark II is a fantastic phone, but it is not without its flaws. We have some issues when it comes to certain aspects of software. I'm not the biggest fan of the fingerprint sensor. The display looks absolutely stunning, but we are missing out on a high refresh rate panel. The cameras are superb, and compared to other phones, I think it is in a league of its own when it comes to overall design and performance, especially when it comes to that screen. But when talking about benchmarking, it is a league below the rest of the phones. This will definitely become my daily driver for the foreseeable future. I'm just not quite sure it should be yours.